Hey, good afternoon to you. 407 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, we'll talk American energy with Steve Milloy at 4:30 as Joe Biden tries to shut down oil exploration in the United States. And then at 5 o'clock, Rob McLeod is here, a political commentator based out of Canada, to respond to the big Canadian news today that Justin Trudeau, Fidel Castro's son, is resigning. Amazing. How long has it been since a Castro stepped down? It's been a while. Hey, you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Today is January 6th, and things went swimmingly today as President Trump was certified the winner of the 2024 presidential election. For the first time this century, Democrats did not object to the count as a Republican was certified as the winner of the presidential election. So that's nice. It's nice that happened. But 4 years ago, there was a lot of drama around the January 6th events, and a whole bunch of people came to the Capitol building, which is, by the way, their Capitol building, and they came into the building, and ever since then, it's been turned into a giant political weapon against President Trump and his supporters. My next guest knows it very well because you've seen his picture. He was at the center of it all. His name's Adam Johnson. You probably know him as the Lectern Guy, captured in an iconic photo carrying Nancy Pelosi's lectern inside the Capitol building and cheerfully waving at the camera. Joining us now, Adam Johnson. Hello, sir. Good to have you with us.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for making time to have me on.
Of course. I'm grateful you're here to talk to us. Give people an understanding of your story. You know, we've all seen your picture, and I know that you've been through hell as a result of that photo. Give us a sense of what happened to you, sir.
Well, the brief Cliff Notes version is we should start with that lectern never left the building. The whole narrative around me in that picture is that I stole this object, that I picked it up and somehow made it out of a building where 100,000 people were surrounding the doors, walked through D.C., got to my hotel, put it on an airline, and flew home with it. That never happened. And anyone with, two brain cells rubbed together would see that picture and say, there's no way it could have the building. I still got charged with felony theft, though. For picking it up, I didn't break down a door, didn't go into someone's office. It was a prop that was sitting outside in the public spaces. I picked it up, carried it about 20, 30 feet, sat it down, gave a short speech, and walked away.
So that lectern, you said you only carried it 30 feet? That's it? So was it in the very room that you were captured in that photo?
It was just outside that room in a hallway, under a staircase.
Wow. So you walked...
It's not an investable.
30 feet. Okay, so you walked 30 feet, and they charged you with felony theft for that.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Which carries, the sentence was up to 10 years for that. So we had to hire attorneys, attorneys to the tune of $100,000. We were not allowed to raise any type of GoFundMe or crowd support. The government forbid it. So we were out that money. They also charged us with 2 misdemeanors of entering and remaining in a restricted building, and it was a trespassing and violent entry. And the video they have, they knew I never stole it. They hid that video from the public for years. I just saw it for the first time last year.
Yeah.
And then the violent entry, I walked through open doors. That video was also publicly available. So we got those 2 charges dropped. I ended up taking a plea deal for trespassing, and for a misdemeanor trespassing charge into a public building, I served 75 days in federal prison, a $5,000 fine, 200 hours of community service, and a year of supervised release.
Were you subjected to D.C. jail time prior to your conviction?
No, I left immediately. The city was on lockdown. I'd already I have a bunch of friends who are in law enforcement. I was talking with them. We hire attorneys. I left D.C. first thing in the morning. I got back to my hometown in Florida, where they arrested me on Friday. So within 2 days, I was sitting in isolation in Pinellas County.
Unbelievable. 75 days in federal prison. What was that like?
I don't recommend it to anyone. If you can avoid it, I definitely suggest that. But everything is it's about your attitude. I went in and I got to hear a lot of stories. I got to have an experience a lot of people will not see, and will never hear about. And I got to learn a lot about the prison system and how there is definitely some reforms and better ways to treat Americans if we really want to see them come out and be better participants of our society.
What prison were you in?
This was Coleman, so federal prison Coleman in the Middle District of Florida.
In the Middle District of Florida. What was the nature of the crimes of the other people who were there?
A lot of them were white collar, so Medicare fraud. There were a couple of human traffickers, mostly drug charges.
Okay. And so you serve 75 days in federal prison. They find you $5,000, as you put it, 200 hours of community service you've been subjected to, and then 1 year of supervised release. When tell us about the supervised release period? What did that consist of?
This was a monthly check-in with a federal probation officer. This was subjected to random drug tests. I'm a father of 5. I have married to the same woman 15 years. I'm not this guy, but I still had to, pee in a cup in front of a stranger whenever they said, we think you might be high or something. I don't know. On top of this, again, 5 kids, I'm a stay-at-home dad. I'm a carpenter at the side trade to kind of cover the gaps. And they wanted me to get a full-time 40-hour-week job. And again, 5 kids. I said, well, that's not going to work with our schedule with our kids. So they said, well, you can go back to college if you want. Tried to go back to college. USF denied me entry into college because they said I was on probation. Even though this is a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. Yes. And again, I have a 3.95 GPA. I'm an excellent student, and I've never been on academic probation, but they denied me. I had to fight a year to get back in there. Finally did, just finished my degree this year.
Well, good for you. How much, obviously you talk about your jail time, you were deprived of your liberty, you were subjected to all this supervised release and having people watch you pee in a cup and just endless. What did this do to you financially?
Financially, we're out $100,000 for the attorneys. It was a $5,000 fine, so $105,000. On top of this, it's not just me. I'm trying to soapbox my story because a lot of people got it so much worse. Yeah. I have tried to apply for jobs like McDonald's, Walmart's, like super entry-level jobs, just to see with this conviction of being there on January 6th, just trespassing, would not allow me to work. And it didn't. I never got callbacks. I would show up in a suit. I went to go for meetings, and they weren't interested. It's a bad look. On top of this, I'm stipulated within my plea deal that I cannot make money for 5 years off of my name, likeness, and image from the federal government.
That's a part of your plea deal. You can't make any money off of the image of you carrying the lectern?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's also my name and my likeness. So it's let's say I get a job, someone offers me a job, the government could argue that I only got that job because of who I am. So we're in a position where, if you want to fight the federal government, you need millions of dollars to do it. And even after that, there's a guarantee you're going to win your case.
We're talking to Adam Johnson. You may know him as the Lectern Guy, which, by the way, told me everything. As soon as I heard that you were identified as the Lectern Guy and that you adopted that identification for yourself, I said, this guy's not a violent criminal. Because if you were violent, you would have been the podium guy. That's what you would have referred to it as. You literally got it correct grammatically. And I was like, this guy, he's into details. So the Lectern Guy, which is amazing. And so coming up, January 20th, we are expecting President Trump to announce pardons for people who've been treated like you have from January 6th of 4 years ago. Do you expect to receive one, Adam?
I do. I think that there will be probably not a blanket pardon for everyone. I suppose what we'll probably see is a pardon for nonviolent protesters who showed up to exercise their First Amendment rights. Mm-hmm. And I think that we will see sentences commuted for people who, that the very small near insignificant percentage of people who did get into a shoving match with police officers. And I've been very clear about this for 4 years now. It's never a good look, never a good thing to get into a rumble with police. It's not a good thing. Yeah. But their sentences have been over and beyond what we have ever seen for these altercations.
Yeah, of course.
Ever.
Yeah, it's in no way commensurate with the way other people have been treated in similar circumstances, especially if they're lefty rioters who are punching cops or pointing laser pointers into their eyes and blinding them outside of a federal courthouse. There are no consequences whatsoever for people who do much of that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if you voted for Trump and you got into a shoving match with a Capitol Police officer, some of these guys have had their lives absolutely destroyed.
And they will never get them back. Like, just to be clear about this, the pardons are, it sounds nice on paper. There's going to be a photo op for politics and optics. It looks fantastic. These people have lost their licenses. We are talking doctors, lawyers, electricians, plumbers, teachers, firefighters, police officers, military veterans. They've lost benefits. They've lost the ability to live. The pardon is fantastic, but we're talking a lot about, I guess, retribution. We need reformation. We need restitution. We need a way to make sure these people are taken care of. These are our neighbors who the Justice Department came across and said, these people, we are ruining their lives forever.
What do you make of the fact that the United States Department of Justice brags about that the January 6 prosecutions and pursuit of Trump supporters is the single largest operation that they've ever conducted in that agency's history?
I think they were embarrassed. I think that they felt like their power was stripped from them. Their pride was hurt because a bunch of people showed up and said, listen, we are the conservative and other groups who show up and protest. We don't do these things. We go to work. We pay our taxes. We don't want a lot of war. We want just a good family life for our next generation. I think we embarrassed them. And in that embarrassment, it was incumbent upon them. It behooves them to not just come after us, but to bury us forever. And I think them bragging about it is a way of saying, you can go to Walgreens, burn it to the ground. You can go to Kenosha. You can go to Seattle. You can start your own. You can insurrect other parts of the country. You don't come here. You don't face us. We are your betters.
Yeah.
That is what this has been about.
Yep. Smart. Your real crime was embarrassing them. And they don't want you to be able to get away with it. So they've made you suffer as a result. We'll see. President Trump coming in January 20th, a bunch of pardons expected. He's promised that on the campaign trail and since. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you're one of the first to get it. There's a lot of people that need that. Adam Johnson, the Lectern Guy, thank you. And by the way, how can people track you down? I know you're on X. That's where I see you.
I'm just exclusively there. Twitter and Instagram. I don't support communist socials, so I'm not on there. You can just find me on Twitter.
You can find him on Twitter, on X these days, at Lectern Leader. Thank you very much, Adam. Really nice to talk to you. Thank you for joining us today. All right, let's go to the phones. Mark is calling in from Virginia Beach now. Mark, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Year, Vince.
Hey there.
Happy New Year, Vince. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy New Year.
All right, so I'm going to preface this statement by saying that I oversaw the renovations of the Capitol of the United States in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I sat at Nancy Pelosi's desk a couple of times while these renovations were taking place.
Uh-oh.
So I'm kind of like intimately involved in that building before Jan 6th.
Mm-hmm.
I don't call that an insurrection. I call that a damn shame for tearing up the people's house.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing what it costs and in time, in labor, and in finances, I took offense to that because it was personal for me. Mm-hmm. Taking care of that building was part of my family's heritage now. I'm the only Mexican-American served in the United States Army of my family to ever stand on top of that building many times. So
cool.
When I saw it hurt me.
Uh-huh.
And I disagreed with what they were doing. They were breaking windows. They were tearing up my personal worth.
Okay.
And it hurt. Now, I feel bad that people were imprisoned for it, but the ones that acted in violence, tearing stuff up, well, they deserve to be put in jail. Not that guy. That guy may have not have done quite as bad. He paid his penalty and still is. It's a damn shame. But when we as Americans decide to protest in such a manner, you gotta remember there's consequences for your personal action.
Well, I'm with you on that. So let me sort through this a little. One, I'm with you on consequences. I totally agree. And when you see people breaking things, including the stuff that you worked on, but you shouldn't be the only one who personally is invested in this. The American people are. You want to see your Capitol building left intact. That said, as I've been saying ever since then, you have to place all of this within context. These guys are being treated in a way that no other American citizen in a similar situation would be. Were they serving the interests of the American left? Do you remember the inauguration of President Trump the first time? When he came in office in January of 2017, there was destruction all over the city of Washington, D.C. Destruction everywhere. There were small businesses having their windows smashed in. There was a limousine, a small business, up in flames right in front of the Washington Post building. And what happened after that? Were people prosecuted, convicted, imprisoned? No, they dropped all the charges against these people. The Justice Department dropped all the charges against them, which was a disgrace. And this is the same thing that keeps on happening. And so when the Justice Department, which has what we refer to as prosecutorial discretion, makes a decision that the single most important thing they can do is to hurt these people, meaning Trump supporters, as much as humanly possible, we get outside of the realms of adequate consequences for your actions, and we get into the realm of political persecution to advance the cause of the left, which has been just an utter disgrace ever since then. So you're right. I do think, if you violate the law, that you should pay commensurate consequences for doing that in a justice system that equally distributes that justice. But that's not the world we live in. And so as a result, I think every one of these guys deserves pardons. Every one. Only as a way to redress the absolute tyranny we've seen out of this United States Department of Justice.
I can support that, and I agree with what you said. The left has been heavy-handed. We watched what they did to our president, which was a total disgrace, and now he's going to come in and hopefully he will give a blanket pardon to these people that have suffered and are still suffering. Yeah. And they're going to continue to suffer because of what the left has done to them. Yeah. I agree with that. It's heavy-handed. But and, at some point in time, we as Americans need to think our protests through so that we don't encounter this garbage anymore.
I mean, but look, remember, here's something to give you hope. Here's something to give you hope, though, Mark. This is an exception. That was an exceptional event, and you even heard from Adam just a moment ago, just talking about Republicans, conservatives. People, you've got jobs, you're busy, you're consumed, you do what you can, you engage in politics in the ways that you can. And a lot of people, I think, coming out of this, these are Americans who are really frustrated with being completely abandoned by Washington, that the establishment had turned against them for so many years. Remember the financial situation of the people who were involved in January 6th. Everyone's forgotten this, but so many of them were in all sorts of financial straits who were in the building, never humanized by the American media as they discussed them. This is the way they acted on that day. You know what? It's just they were coming out of the summer of love, the summer of riots, and they thought, oh, really? This is the way to express myself? And we saw some of that. You're right. It's fine. You have to think about consequences. That matters. We have to have a country that's functional and where consequences exist. That said, you can't have an out-of-control tyrannical Justice Department.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate the call and your work on our nation's capital. That's a big deal. All right, stay with us. Steve Milloy is going to talk American energy with us as Joe Biden tries to once again just take a bat and hit us on the knees. Hopefully he's too weak to do that. Steve will talk to us next. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Rob McLeod will be with us at 5 o'clock as Fidel Castro's son announces that he is resigning as the Prime Minister of Canada. We'll discuss what that means for our Canadian neighbors. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The Associated Press reports today President Joe Biden is now moving to ban new offshore oil and gas drilling in most U.S. coastal waters, a last-minute effort to block possible action by the incoming Trump administration to expand offshore drilling. Oh, thanks, Joe. Thanks for all the gifts on the way out the door. Here's President Trump responding to this news today, talking to radio host Hugh Hewitt.
I see it just came over that Biden has banned all oil and gas drilling across 625 million acres of U.S. coastal territory. It's ridiculous. I'll unban it immediately. I will unban it. I have the right to unban it immediately. What's he doing? Why is he doing it? You know, we have something that nobody else has. I mean, nobody has to the extent we have it, and it'll be more by the time we finish because I'll be able to expand. You know, we're going to expand our country, and it'll be more. We have oil and gas, and whether you manufacture widgets or gadgets or whatever you happen to be doing, some countries have to work very hard to do that. We do too, and we will. But we have oil and gas at a level that nobody else has, and we're going to take advantage of it. And when I see somebody saying he's going to ban 625 million acres, he doesn't know what that is. He doesn't even know what 625 million acres would look like. And we can't let that happen to our country. It's really our greatest economic asset. And we're not going to let that happen to our country.
Yeah, well, I hope President Trump can reverse it. I know the widget and gadget industries would like that, too. All right, joining us now to discuss what the heck just happened, Steve Milloy, senior E&E legal fellow and a former Trump-Pence EPA transition team member. Steve, good to have you with us. Happy New Year.
Hey, Vince, Happy New Year. How am I supposed to follow that?
I don't know. I never know how to follow.
Gadgets and widgets.
Yeah, I know. I love that phrase. He said the widget industry, the gadget industry, they're all affected by this. What did Joe Biden do? Let's just start here. You see a big announcement like this, that he's banning 625 million acres from being drilled. It seems like a lot of acreage.
Yeah, I don't think he has the legal authority to do that, and whatever he can do, the next president can undo, and you heard President Trump, he's going to undo it. I think this is just sort of it's a form of insurrection. I mean, everyone knows what President Trump's mandate was, what he campaigned on, what he's going to do. And for these people to just throw up this roadblock, which is just ridiculous. It's got, there's no law for it. Congress doesn't want him to do it. He's just doing it because he thinks he can, and he's going to make Trump jump through the hurdles to undo it. And of course, there's some danger in that. And, President Trump's going to have to be very careful to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, to roll it back carefully, because if he doesn't, some green group is going to forum shop to find a Biden-Obama judge that will issue a nationwide, injunction. And it's just going to be a mess. And of course, our federal court system is so lame, it would take years to overturn something like that.
Yeah, no, and also this really gets to the heart of the economic problems that are going on in the country right now under Joe Biden's watch. One of the big reasons we've got this out of control inflation is that Joe Biden has been kneecapping American energy. And the last thing he wants President Trump to be able to do is to come in and to actually relieve Americans of the price pressures that they've been undergoing. Because when you ask President Trump, how are you going to get prices under control? He always goes back to the same thing, Steve: energy, energy, energy.
Yeah, and energy. Well, look, inflation really took off when Biden implemented his war on energy, on American energy. We need to unleash our energy, and that means natural gas, oil, coal, nuclear. We need to make it easier to get those things going so that we can have cheap energy, because that is the basis of a booming economy. You can't have expensive energy and a booming economy. That doesn't happen any place on earth. Now, we have to have fair prices for energy. Energy can't be free, because then you're not going to have an energy industry. But we can make good prices that are going to provide for growth that will make everybody a winner.
Yeah, that's right. And also, one of the myths of the Biden era is this idea that he's been some big friend to natural gas and oil, when in fact, as we've talked about, Steve, the Biden administration has routinely gotten in the way of that industry. And the extent to which they can claim this oil production, it really is a credit to President Trump's administration, especially because it takes, 5 years for an oil well to come online. In other words, whatever little things that they can point to right now, and they say, look at all this oil being drilled. Yeah, you can thank President Trump for that, right?
Well, I think we talked. Yeah, of course. I think we talked about this before. Biden's actually been kind of sabotaging the oil industry because while he's allowing the oil industry to, pump all the oil it can right now, he's not allowing them to develop new reserves. So in a sense, he's been letting the oil industry pump itself out. Keep in mind that he also emptied the strategic petroleum reserve and has not really filled it up. And so, we've been draining our resources and reserves without replacing them. And of course, the whole world has known that. OPEC knew it. And that's why oil prices were so high. Now, with President Trump coming in, all that's going to change because they know that we're going to produce as much oil as we can. We are going to be back in charge of the global price of oil. And those guys are going to be, we're not going to be at their mercy anymore.
Is it possible, speaking of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, is it possible for President Trump to negotiate an advantageous price to refill it with the oil companies? Like, in other words, like in exchange for access to various federal lands or whatever they might need, whatever they want from the federal government, could President Trump negotiate a good deal to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I'm not even really quite sure how important that Strategic Petroleum Reserve is anymore. Recall that as like a 1970s idea during the energy crisis, and since then we've developed fracking. We really have more oil and gas than we know what to do with. For a while earlier last year in West Texas, natural gas was selling at a negative price, which means you had to pay to get rid of it. So we really have a lot. What we need to do is have the pipelines, the infrastructure. We need the LNG terminals that Biden banned. We need to push that stuff out. We need to be selling our natural gas, not to ourselves, because there's no money in that. We need to sell it to the Asians and Europeans who will pay 6 times more for it. We need to be burning coal here for electricity because that's what's cheap. We need to build nuclear power. There's all these sorts of things we can do that the left has been blocking for decades or destroyed starting with Obama.
Steve Milloy, how quickly can President Trump ramp all of this up when he gets into office?
Well, a lot of it is just, the fact that he's there and the government is going to be on the side of the energy industry. Psychological. Investors want to know that there's a there. If they're going to put their money into something, they want to know that they're going to get a return. That was a problem with Biden. Biden sent the message out that, you can still invest in this stuff, but it may never pay off. President Trump is going to be the exact opposite. So, half the battle is just giving people confidence. Now, there's going to be a lot that he has to do. A lot of EPA regulations need to be rolled back. A lot of Department of Interior regulations need to be rolled back. We need to start turning federal lands back to the states. Let states start producing. Maybe we can use some of that money to pay down the debt. I mean, there's a lot that can be done, and I think President Trump is going to do it all. But Biden here is going to be a problem all the way to the end.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of Joe Biden, what do you, insofar as you can psychologically assess what the hell's happening, why is he throwing up all of these roadblocks in your view?
Well, I don't think he's checked in at all. I don't think he has any idea what he's doing. It's, everybody else. I mean, it's the same left-wingers that have been running his administration for the last 4 years. I guess they tell him it's popular, so he does it. Who knows? I'm not inside the guy's head. I don't know anybody else is, but I know that he's run by all these left-wingers. And this has always been their agenda, and, he's just been the horse they've ridden.
Yes, and this has all the obvious signs of an administration that's angry that they were just rejected by the voters, and they're doing everything to sabotage them before they leave.
Yeah. Well, one important thing that President Trump could do, the Biden administration is shoveling out the door all this Inflation Reduction Act money. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars. Department of Energy has this $400 billion lending authority. President Trump should issue a statement right away saying that we're going to invest, we're going to freeze this stuff as soon as we come in, and we're going to investigate all these recent transactions. And whether you're on the giving end, if you're a federal employee or a political employee, or if you're on the receiving end, we're going to investigate you for fraud. You better make sure that you've got all your I's dotted and T's crossed.
I hope so. That's great advice. I hope he does that. What do you think of the kind of the global sentiment towards this green energy industry, to the extent that you can even call it that? We're seeing today Justin Trudeau announced his resignation, which is great news. It does feel like the political winds are shifting meaningfully towards more sovereignty, concern about all of this globalism all over the place. Do you feel like things are improving in terms of the global recognition of the value of abundant energy and breaking that fever of the green energy nonsense?
Yeah, so there's a couple canaries in the coal mine, Germany and Great Britain. These green policies have caused a lot of pain, and people are starting to get really angry about it. And that's good. It's happened really sort of more broadly across Europe. The biggest problem I see is here at home, because the Congress passed that Inflation Reduction Act, which has got $1 trillion worth of spending, and Democrats are not stupid. They have spent a lot of that money in red states, and now there's a lot of red states and red state governors and politicians that they have bought off with that money, and that is going to be a huge problem for President Trump. President Trump wants to roll back the Inflation Reduction Act spending. Well, how's he going to do that when you've got all these red states that want that money? So, that's really the biggest problem for us right now. But generally speaking, green is just melting across the planet. It doesn't work. It's too expensive. It's not providing any benefits. It's ridiculous.
Yes. And there's just suffering that comes from it, and people are learning from that. Yeah. I hope the fever really does break. In the meantime, Steve Milloy, thank you as always, sir, for joining us and giving us your expert perspective on this. Yep. Good to talk to you. There he is, Steve Milloy, senior E&E legal fellow and a former Trump-Pence EPA transition team member. As once again, the breaking news today that Joe Biden is attempting to block new offshore drilling in hundreds of millions of acres of federal waters. President Trump announcing today that he is going to reverse it immediately. I hope that is true, and I hope he can succeed. The Associated Press isn't so sure. They say today that it could be difficult for President Trump to unwind all of this, and they claim that it would likely require an act of Congress to repeal, which is amazing considering it didn't really take an act of Congress for Joe Biden to ban drilling. So why couldn't President Trump just simply reverse it? One wonders. Steve Milloy points out, though, today that he's going to have to dot his I's, cross his T's as he does this so that he doesn't get stopped by some lunatic left-wing judge. George is calling in from Springfield now, line 4. George, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. Listen, it's no secret. The international left wants to destroy the international capitalist system, and the easiest way to do it is to stop American capitalism. And George Soros is in on this whole thing. So I suspect, now this is only my opinion, I'm not accusing anybody, but this is my opinion, that somehow George Soros has gotten to Joe Biden and or the people that control Joe Biden, because Joe Biden doesn't do anything. He's controlled by a whole bunch of leftists who run the country for him right now, and this is why this is happening.
Yeah, well, Soros. This is right there near the top of Soros's concerns and interests. He's really big in the green energy spending movement. He's been interested in blocking out the sun. He's one of those billionaires who's interested in using his money to block out sunlight from coming to Earth, which, by the way, is like one of the centerpieces of how life is sustained on our planet. And Soros, to your point, it's so funny. Like the left has spent years saying, you can't say Soros wields influence among Democrats. They'll even go so far as to say it's anti-Semitic to say that, because it turns out George Soros is Jewish, and therefore it's anti-Semitic to point out that he wields any influence. I don't know how those two things are in any way connected, considering if I go on various federal elections records websites right now, I can see that George Soros is one of the top political donors in the entire country. So it would stand to reason that you would scrutinize how he's donating his money. But you saw this weekend that George, that Joe Biden just gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to George Soros. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I would have
this
had a
weekend.
heart attack if I'd seen that.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I don't mean to hurt your heart or anything, but that did happen this weekend. He gave it to George's son, Alex. Alex showed up because I guess George is too sickly or maybe too important to show up.
You know who Alex is married to?
Who is Alex married to?
Alex is married? He's married to Huma Abedin.
Oh, yeah, Anthony Weiner's old wife. Yeah, that's right, Huma Abedin, and importantly, Hillary Clinton's body girl, Huma Abedin.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you know something about George Soros. There is an old video that I saw a couple of years ago where George Soros relates to the interviewer. I forgot who it was. One of the guys, and he's telling him that the happiest times in his life. Listen to this. Was when he was denouncing Jewish people to the Gestapo during the war. He was going because he's Jewish and he knew all the Jews, and he was guiding the Gestapo to go and arrest Jewish people who were in hiding.
Wow.
So
that's
you can Google that. You'll see unless it's been taken off.
Amazing. All right. Well, hey George, thank you for pointing to the very same thing that the Biden White House was pointing to this weekend, which is George Soros is so influential that Biden just gave him a Presidential Medal of Freedom, which really tells you everything. All right. Don's in Alexandria on line 3. Hello, Don. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Happy New Year. Kudos to you for bringing energy to the so close to the historic event of this afternoon, certifying the election. Energy is so darn important to us. And towards the end, the particular point made by Steve Milloy about green energy and Germany showing us the example of what happens when a society in a just crazy manner dedicates itself to green energy, wind and solar, shut down your nuclear, and where that has left Germany from a industrial and financial standpoint.
Yes.
We need to learn those lessons, and I thank you for highlighting that.
Well, where did it lead? They shut down all of that energy, and then where do they get their energy from? They get it from Russia. They have this arrangement where they have to get their energy from Russia. And I said, well, wait a second. How does this serve anybody's interests? You're handicapping your own energy production. Kneecapping your own energy production. You're empowering a regional adversary. It's literally the opposite of what a wise person would do, which is what Germany ended up doing.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. Anyway, Happy New Year, Don. Thank you for your call. There he is, Don in Alexandria. And Steve is right. It's like I hope the spell is broken. I think it is. A lot of the nonsense seems to be falling by the wayside, but it never fully disappears. It just lurks. It regroups, and it pops up as some other form of nonsense. So we always have to be on guard for that, don't we? Coming up, Rob McLeod knows it all too well. He's a political commentator up in the nonsense country that lives above us, Canada, and they'd like to be done with their nonsense. They are absolutely furious at Fidel Castro's son, and in fact, the people have turned against him so meaningfully that he's decided to resign. He announced that today. Justin Trudeau did. We'll talk about that with Rob McLeod, what it means for Canada, what it means for us, and what role Trump may have played in all of this. That's ahead.